All righty. I think we're going to go ahead and get started. You have 5 seconds left to answer the poll. 4, 3, 2, 1. Awesome. Share results. There we go. All right, cool. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started with everybody here. And actually pull this back over here. Awesome. Sounds good. Just making sure again, everybody can hear me and everything. I'm guessing so since y'all are chatting up. Well, thank you for joining today's webinar. Just a couple of notes before we begin. We do have a free trial for you all. It's webinar exclusive right now. You may have gotten it in your email, but I'm also going to drop the link in the chat here. This is a preloaded trial with Prospector's uranium assets. It's good for 30 days. We have a ton of great stuff up on there. Also, this webinar will be recorded, so we will be sending the replay. If you have any questions before, during, or after the webinar, you can put those in the chat, the Q&A, or you can also email me at jessica.scanlon@prospectorportal.com, and I'm going to go ahead and drop that in the chat as well. My name is Jess Scanlon. I have a background in mining geology, and I'm the head of new media here at Prospector. Today, I'm joined by John Godbout, Prospector's CTO, COO. John, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here. Looking forward to going over some uranium projects with you all.
Awesome. So first things first, before we dive in, is a quick overview of what is Prospector. We specialize in complicated technical mining disclosure data and work to make it easily accessible by everyone. We currently have over 10,000 global mining projects in our database, and we are constantly growing. We have made it easy to take the mining industry with you wherever you need it. We have a web-based application, so there's no software needed to download. You can access it from any computer. We also have a free mobile app available, which is great if you're in the field, at a conference, etc. We also offer different user licenses and now custom data queries to fit your specific needs. Awesome. So why should we care about uranium mining and investment? And as I'm talking here, I'm just going to go ahead and launch another poll here, just about uranium. So as we transition to more decarbonized technology, electric vehicles, etc., the demand for energy will increase. While we are working for more renewable energy sources, which is fantastic, are they going to be enough to meet the demand? We need to consider uranium as an option. Now, why is that? Next slide, there we go. Uranium is a really clean energy source. It emits almost no greenhouse gases during electricity generation, and the energy density is really large, so that's really great. Awesome. It's also very abundant. 72% of the world's resources are located in Australia, Canada, and Kazakhstan. If you'd like more information on uranium resources, we do have the Prospector 2023 uranium report out now, and I'll drop that link in the chat here in just a few minutes. Uranium can also be very high grade. The deposits in Canada can be up to 16% higher, or 16 times higher, sorry, than the global average grade, with a lot of these deposits located in the famous Athabasca Basin. We have seen a dramatic increase in uranium price over the last 5 years, and as demand grows, we can probably assume that the price will grow, or at least hope. Awesome, so I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to John now that I've done that brief overview, and he's going to show us the global uranium projects.
All right, thanks, Jess. Really appreciate that intro. So anytime we come into Prospector, the place we initially land is on our browse page. And so I've already gone ahead and I've filtered out our uranium projects. You can see where they are across the globe. But typically, today I think we're going to look at we're going to try to focus on some feasibility stage or PEA stage assets and what's been kind of more recently released in the past year or so. So in order to do that, we can click on our little advanced filters here. We'll pick the time range. So I'm going to reduce it down to a year. We can look and see what's had a technical report or an update in the past year. And I'm going to limit it to PEA, pre-feasibility, and a permitting stage. looking for early stage assets, looking for something that has some potential upside in the future. And there's really about 9 key ones. And I think I'm going to focus this even closer. I'm going to look at just the ones in Africa. You can see there's a couple up here in Niger. I'll take a look. It's like we have Venezuela. Oops. Zoom is going crazy on me, and the DASA uranium project. So let's take a look at DASA. So once we find and we've gone through and searched through the projects that we're looking for and we've down selected, we can always click and open and go right to the project page. And once we're in the project page, this is going to offer a number of different information. So one is the basics. What are the minerals? What's the deposit model? Where is it located? Who owns it? What are the resources? What are the technical reports? Right. So we start with the basics up top. Look at the ownership. It looks like the government of Niger owns 10% and the Global Atomic Corporation owns 90%. We can see that Global Atomic Corporation has 2 other projects as well, so maybe we'll check those out afterwards. We can see all the technical reports that have been released on DASA. And if we want to, we can actually go look at the report itself. But before we do that, why don't we take a look at the actual life of mine plan? Looks like there's been 2. There was one that was done just this year, in January, came out in January. And there's another one that was done in 2020. And if you want to on the platform, you can always come in and look and compare the 2. You'll see that there's a number of different metrics. What kind of this looks like it's an underground mine. They'll be using crushing and leaching. There's processing metrics, processing grades. This is about a 0.5% process grade, so it's relatively decent compared to most uranium mines. Maybe not as much as mines in the Athabasca region, but it's still pretty high. Get some details on the royalties. And what's really cool about this information is every time you see it, there's actually going to be a little pop-up you can click on, which will tell you some information about the page, the section, where is it coming out. And then if you click on the document itself, it'll actually open up the actual technical report that's being referenced. So I love doing this because it's sometimes a great way to validate the information. So if you think, oh, is that accurate or not? This is a great way to check. And you can see it's a really big report as well. So we saw before it was on page 48 for the CapEx, right? And we can go and see where that information is coming. It's total initial capital expenditure is about 208 million, plus some sustaining and closure costs for 138 million. But when you're in here, maybe you want to look at some other areas. Maybe you want to see what the overall economics are, in addition to the mine plans. This is where you can actually go pick in this little section drop down, and you can take yourself into any one section you like. So for me, I like to look at the economic analysis, where it's actually going to give me what the net present value, internal rate of return, and what the company's predicting the overall value of the mine to be long term. And so we'll do some testing later so we can flex some of their assumptions versus ones that we may have changed. Maybe we think it's different discount rate. Maybe we think that there's going to need more capital. Maybe that's the price that they're using is not the same as what we might consider. So it's a good way to check and report in addition to the other data that we have. Now, lastly, we can look at the resources of the company or in the project in this case. And we do these little comparisons. So this is looking at, okay, if we look at the grade on the y-axis and the tonnage on the x, this is telling us, okay, this asset is relatively good, decent grade at the inferred level and at the indicated and measured, and at their reserve level, they seem to be quite high at 0.5%. And then the tonnage is telling you where they sit. You can look at the overall ranking, the growth of the resources and reserves over time, and if there's different parts of the project, what are they contributing to what portion of the proven and probable reserves. It's a really great way to kind of get a quick view and understand the context behind the asset itself when we're trying to compare it against others. And if we want to go see what else the company owns, we can just click here, and this will open the company page for them. And I'll pause there for just to kind of talk more before we start diving into some actual NPV analysis.
Yeah, thank you, John. Those are fantastic insights, and it's so easy to search on Prospector. That's one of my favorite things about our platform. For more information on uranium, I just again wanted to highlight the Prospector 2023 Uranium Resource Report. Our team is so proud of this. It gives further detail on all of these projects, as well as an insights into global resources, grades, etc. I'm going to go ahead and drop that into the chat. So that's a free download. It's a PDF. It's great. Awesome. So now that we have a view into all these projects on the platform and in our resource report, how do we compare them, John? What are we looking for?
Yeah, so there's a number of factors that go into this, and this is where our NPV analysis comes in. But before that, I just want to highlight, this is the company page where you can see some basics on the company, their metrics, price, other projects they have, also their filings. So in this case, you can see there's actually there was a drilling update that happened just prior to that technical report filing that was done by the company, and their overall resource and reserves. They only have one asset, so it's not quite as interesting as it might be. Now, I'm going to flip back to the project itself, and maybe we want to go and check we want to test out the case. Like, what do we think this looks like, and how do the assumptions compare? So it looks like here, there's some, there's a, if we're looking at a base price case of today's price of $40 per pound, maybe we want to see what that looks like at $35 per pound. And we can quickly look at that case and look at how it adjusted. But maybe we think the discount rate is high. Maybe we don't think Niger is as high risk of a place. So we can see how this affects the overall. And then the tax rates, maybe the tax rate assumptions are a bit high. We want to reduce them. Again, we can check down. And this is going to kind of flex over time. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm using one of their old cases. Let's use their updated one, so which has an actual much bigger royalty arrangement. So again, quick. And what's happening here is if you click this little icon on the right, it's actually going to break down how the NPV gets calculated. And what's happening, what this does is it takes the total metal sales, it subtracts out the OpEx based on the operational expenditure assumptions for mining, processing, and G&A cost. It takes the CapEx, looks at the gross profit, takes out the taxes, takes out the royalties, and then that gets to a free cash flow number over the life of the project, and then that's getting discounted based on the discount rate that you're able to apply within the tool. So this is just a kind of a really quick way. It's a straight line, doesn't account for ramp up and ramp down, but it does allow us to quickly analyze the asset itself and see how it compares to other projects. So this one in Niger, right? We're looking at, it goes on the low side, maybe at the price of 35, it's down at 250. I'll do an 8% discount rate. But then if I want to increase this up to say 60, it's going to go to 823 million. So there's a drastic increase in price change that can happen as the price assumptions change. And so maybe if a technical report is filed at, say, an assumption of $55 versus 35, that's very different if we're looking at the NPV that's being reported there, right? We want to check and flex that and see how that compares to the different price scenarios, because that's going to affect the overall profitability. Some mines are going to do much better at higher or lower prices, depending on the grade and number of other factors relevant to the mine itself and the cost of operating. So this is Dawson project, and I'm going to pop over to one that's in the Athabasca region in Saskatchewan just in a second, but just I want to kind of highlight a few things. So one is we were looking at a 0.5% uranium grade, right? We have a recovery rate of 93.8. It's a almost 14-year mine life. Capacity is about 365,000, and it's going to produce about 44 million pounds of uranium over its life. So now, let's say we want to look at another asset, and let's look at the Arrow deposit. So this is one that's in the Athabasca region. They released their tech report back in March 2021. And you'll notice here, this one is a 250 243 million pounds. So it's quite significantly a lot more uranium over its life, even though it's only got 11-year mine life, right? So it's going to produce a lot more. It also it also has a much higher grade, right? 2.37%. So that means that if we, in any given ton of ore, there is roughly 5 times as much uranium as there was at that other asset in Niger, the DASA project, right? It's an underground mine. The royalties look lower, right? So then we can flex this and we can look and see, okay, well, how does this cost compare? Well, it's already definitely, even at a $35 per pound, it's doing better than DASA is doing at $60 per pound, right? So it's clearly a higher NPV. And then if we do this at 50, we can quickly look and see, oh, it's 4.6 billion. And if we go as high as 60, right, 5.7 billion. So definitely a high value asset in Saskatchewan. So again, as you do this, you can always save. And what we've saved for all of you is at the end, you're going to get these tied to your accounts in your My Prospector section, where you'll be able to look and see and analyze these. So you can see here, those who have signed up and requested it, you're going to get all these different uranium analyses that are done and the NPVs that go with them, right? Where we're trying to unify what it looks like. In addition to that, as you're looking at what your analysis is done, you can always save it, save a new version, you can reset it, and you can download a little PDF of it. That little PDF will print. You can use it in a presentation, share it with your friends, share it with your colleagues. Really great way to quickly share what's out there. So let's maybe take a look at one more project out here. So I pulled up another one. This is the Sheep Uranium Project. Again, similar mine life, 12 years, right? Not open pit and underground, but a much lower processing grade, right? So we're talking 0.123. So looking at Arrow, the one we were just looking at, that means that this is going to be 10 times less concentrate, like as less uranium per ton than before. And it's producing a lot less uranium, more than DASA. It's got 16 million. Recovery rate's kind of similar, right? I think one big thing here is that you look at the strip ratio, it's 33-1, right? So this is saying that for every ton of ore that's going to be processed, there's going to be 33 tons that are waste, right? So it's a lot, right? When we're talking about tailings management. And you can see that, this is a much lower NPV. We'll up this to the newer case. And let's put it at an 8% discount. And I'm going to try to do this at 50. And we'll get to 214. And we'll try at 60. It's going to get to 307, right? So it's not drastically increasing, right? It's still a lot less, but if we compare it back to DASA, it's less valuable than DASA, but maybe that we think that, hey, we want to discount this more because it's in Niger. Maybe we discounted that 12%. Now it's 669, right? And versus the 307, still not going to get there, right? But if we're playing around these scenarios, this is the kind of stuff we can do to understand the relative value of the different assets. So a really great way to examine, process, look and examine more uranium projects.
That's so great. And it makes it so easy to compare, John.
Thanks, Jess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't you, if we have time for one more, I can do one more, or we can kind of share some of the resources with the crowd, or if there's any questions out there.
Let's see. I think we have time for one more. Let's check it out.
Okay. All right. So Patterson Lake, very close to Arrow. This one there was also one released in January. Again, looking at this at $35 per pound, not nearly as much as the Arrow deposit, but still 90 million pounds. That's much more than we saw at Sheep. And it's got a processing grade of 1.41, so a lot more than Sheep, but about half of what it was at Arrow deposit. So pretty decent. 10-year mine life, very similar, completely underground. And if we flex this at 35, we're talking about $500 million. We go $50. We're going to go to 1.2, right? And let's go to 60. Over 60, we're going to go to 1.7. So, still not probably more higher NPV than all the other assets, with the exception of the Arrow deposit, but still a pretty significant asset. It's there. I'd say Arrow, as we go through this, is definitely the one that's got the highest net present value. All right. So here's, here we go. So here's we'll share this in the presentation. Oops, I don't know why that's, are you doing
It just doesn't want to cooperate today.
No, it's advancing on its own. So this is the overall comparison of what we just went through and some of the data that we'll share out in the presentation, just looking at the details of how it was provided. And Justin, want to talk about the
Yeah, I'd love to, for sure. If you want to just pull up that NPV comparison slide just without not in presentation mode, so that everybody can get the bar graph. If it's going to advance on its own, we can technical difficulties, everybody. Dang it. So the Prospector team, like I said, is super excited to announce a special 30-day uranium trial. So all of those assets that John is showing on the screen now, as well as some of the ones that we went through, they're already preloaded into your My Prospector account. With that trial, I'm going to go ahead and drop that link in the chat again. There we go. It's super easy to sign up for that. You just put your name and email in. And then if you have a Prospector account, you just select the little button that says I have a Prospector account, and we'll add those to your existing account. You don't have to create a new one. So we have all the NPVs, all the projects, etc. So we're going to go ahead and pause for a quick Q&A. We do have one here ready to go, John. Can you compare the contained minerals, ounces per pounds instead of tonnage? Yeah, so
sure.
This is from Andrew. Can you comp, and I'm guessing that's compare, the contained minerals, ounces over pounds. Oh, I think he's asking if you can change.
Oh, if I understand correctly, when we're looking at the comparison charts, I think what's being asked is, can we compare, rather than looking at the tonnage and grade comparison that we were showing? So if I hear right, let's go back to the DASA project. Yeah. So are we talking about the tonnage here for the contained metal? Right now we do grade and tonnage. We've talked about doing contained metal actually. And it's good feedback. It's actually very easy for us to do that. And it's part of data queries that we do all the time. But that's really great feedback if it would be more useful to have grade and contained metal versus the overall tonnage of the asset. It's definitely something that we can do. Obviously it's not right in the platform as it stands, but it's definitely something that we have the data available to do, and we will add that to our future improvements. So thank you for that feedback.
Yeah, and we can export this data to a CSV. Is that correct, John?
Yeah.
So if they wanted to get in and do the calculations themselves. Awesome. Did that answer your question, Andrew?
Yeah. And we do normalize all of our resource data. From a contained metal standpoint, we do normalize everything to the tons. So if one company is reporting in pounds versus tons, we normalize that all to one for the contained metal. And if a company is only reporting something let's say they report enriched uranium, we do also try to do the conversion factors for uranium oxide so that we can actually compare apples to apples in the assets, even if they're not directly reporting it, because there's a standard ratio. I think it's 1.174. Don't let the geologists.
Oh man.
Correct.
I don't know if that's off of my head. It's been a while. Okay, so next, just a question from me while we're waiting for some more questions. Uranium mining, lithium mining, all of those are super hot right now. Are we going to have the option to filter by the different mining methods, say regular like hard rock mining versus in situ, etc.
Yeah, this is actually something we're planning in the next month, is to add that as a pretty quick filter. Trying to also do the same thing with the deposit model, so that you can isolate to processing method, mining method, and deposit model, in addition to the minerals and the the last publication and the resource estimate level filters as well.
Awesome. And so, but that's something that we can custom query right now, but it's coming to the user
Yes.
platform eventually.
Exactly. So if you want some very specific details, maybe you want every heap leach mine in South America that produces copper, right? Or every in situ uranium, maybe for the sake of the webinar, you want every in situ mine that we have globally versus conventional mine, right? Those are the things that we can definitely provide.
Awesome. And then another question that we often get asked, do you have private companies listed in the database?
We
We
do.
yeah, we cover a lot of stock exchanges, right?
Yeah. We cover a lot of stock exchanges, and actually we recently added Orano, who is a French company. And we added all their assets in. We do have them on the platform. You can see the map here of all their different ones, as well as their resources and reserves and the ownership they have of each one of these assets. So yes, we are looking to expand further into the private and not just the private, but the non-TSX and ASX, LSC and JSE and New York companies, right? So we, as a basis, we cover every company on ASX, TSX, London Stock Exchange, Johannesburg Stock Exchange, and New York Stock Exchange, including NASDAQ, and New York American. And so in the context of that, right, we're planning to add at least the big private companies, so that we have them on the platform as well.
It's really nice. It gives you a really nice global view of what's happening. Awesome. So yeah, if there's any questions, again, you can drop those in the Q&A in the chat. I did also just launch another poll. What do we want to see next? We just did lithium, and that was a ton of fun. Obviously, uranium today, but we're always looking forward to bringing new insights that we can with our database. So we want to know what report you guys want next, what webinar you want. Always good. And then we had 75% of people who were really excited about uranium, and about 25% that were on the fence. So I know this is out of left field, John, but any insights for those who might be on the fence about uranium?
I mean, I think when it comes to uranium, I think a lot of it, at least in my own view, is, I think we all think about the negative aspects of nuclear a lot of times, right? And I think that, if you look in, particularly in the United States, right, we really, after the crisis on Long Island, after, Chernobyl, right, these things, we have this kind of perception of, I think, of nuclear power plants as being relatively dangerous. And I think that, I think that we've come a long way, right, safety standards wise, and I think that it's becoming increasingly important, right? And I think that, until we invent fission nuclear energy is something that's, I think, going to remain important, right? And it's definitely got its merits, particularly if we can, continually improve how we deal with, the waste of the nuclear power plants. But as far as uranium mining goes, it's, there's a lot more uranium and higher grade than there is gold, right, in most ore. And so, if we look globally, there's an abundance of it, and it requires a lot less. And, not to say it's going to be the thing that takes over everything, but it does have the opportunity to replace some of the high CO2 emission energy sources out there.
Those are great insights. I am also excited to see the future of uranium and see where that goes. Oh goodness. Alex says it would be great to see something on critical minerals, pretty high up on the administration's agenda. Agreed. We're always looking at critical minerals here on Prospector, and you can find a lot of those. I think in the US the list is 26 minerals long. And I think Canada, I just put out theirs a little while ago, and lots of them. Awesome. So any more questions or chat or anything? It looks like so far the poll is leading towards rare earths that people want to see.
Okay.
One for the latest Prospector updates. Thanks, y'all. We appreciate that. With copper tied with rare earths. So we're excited to be hosting these webinars, and we appreciate you all for logging on. I'm going to drop my email in the chat one more time. If you guys have any questions or anything afterwards, please don't hesitate to reach out to me or John or anyone on the team. Yeah, be sure to follow us on social media. That's always a good thing. We're at Prospector AI on most social media platforms. We're everywhere. John, do you have any final remarks for everybody while we're getting those last minute questions in?
No, I think we really appreciate all of the feedback and engagement, right? And do reach out if you have specific data needs and enjoy the platform. We did add all these NPVs to explore. If you have any issues, there's always, you can always reach out to us on account, get help. And this will allow you to create a little ticket. We typically try to respond within 60 minutes, sometimes sooner. So do reach out to us. And if there's a project missing or something you'd like to see, do let us know, right? We're trying to add as much as we can. We're expanding the database. At the moment, like I said before, we cover all those major exchanges, but we're now planning to add a lot of private companies. Orano was one of the first ones. There'll be more. So looking forward to your feedback.
Awesome. And then just one last thing, since you referenced the trial, where can they go to find those trial assets again? Just one more time. Besides the link, once they sign up, where does that information land?
The trial itself?
Like, yeah, the where we're preloading all those assets in the My
Oh,
Prospector.
yes. Yeah. So what you'll see, and we've done a number of different things. So one is you'll have your saved MPVs in My Prospector section. So you'll see you're going to be able to go in and look at the scenario and view it. Just click on the view and you can go look at it. And then we've even added a list of all the top uranium projects by resource for everyone who attended, right? And so this is an easy way to go look and check out these bigger projects, particularly Olympic Dam, the biggest one in the world. And then finally, we've actually pre-populated a saved search so that new uranium reports that come out, they will automatically be emailed to you for you to go check out. So there's a little alert that we added. So these are all great things that are added on the platform. So the My Prospector section is where you can do all your prospects and companies that you follow. And you have your list. Right? So here, let me get my uranium one. Yeah, so these are all the uranium projects you can go and check out.
Awesome. Yeah, and you can save any projects you find on Prospector to those. These are just the ones that we've pre-populated for you to make it really nice and easy, since you all were interested in the uranium webinar. We've taken the time to do that for you. Awesome. Well, I don't see any other questions happening here. So I did drop that link to this trial again. It's completely free. We'd love to see you guys on the platform, have some feedback and hear what you think. I'm going to hang around for about 3 more minutes. But I think with that, we're good to close. Thank you for co-hosting this with me, John. I'm super excited. And thank you all for joining us. We're really happy to see you all here.
Thank you.
Awesome. So I'm just going to hang around for about 3 minutes. And we'll see you all next time.